It was the middle of the night. A young woman was walking towards the main road covered in blood. She was abducted, assaulted, stabbed 36 times in the abdomen and 16 times in the throat. Her intestines were spilling out and almost decapitated. When she reached the road, she laid down in the middle of it. Alison was born in Port Elizabeth on September 22, 1967. She grew up there with her father, Brian, her mother, Claire, and her brother, Neil, who was 18 months older than her. Her parents divorced when she was about 10 years old, and after that, she and her brother lived with their mother. In 1985, she enrolled as a student at the Collegiate High School for Girls in Port Elizabeth. She started working as insurance broker. December 18, 1994. Port Elizabeth in South Africa. 27-year-old Alison Botha came to her house 1 a.m. She had spent most of the day with friends. She just parked outside her house and never locked her car doors. Suddenly a guy just appeared. He opened the door next to her, put a knife to her throat, and said, "Move over, or I'll kill you." He started engine. Alison was terrified. She didn't know how to react. She decided to stay calm to survive. After a while, he stopped the car, and another man got in. They took her to the bushes in the outskirts of Port Elizabeth. "Are you going to fight?" he asked. She knew she could not win against them. She thought, if I can just switch off, I can get through it. "No," she said at last. He said, "Take off your clothes." She did. The first man sexually assaulted Alison, and second man proceeded brutally per as well. Alison was vulnerable and was waiting for this nightmare to end. And he was on top of her. He started to strangle her. She was unconscious through most of the injuries because they stabbed her in the abdomen about 36 times and then cut her throat 16 times. She would later recall that. "I was outside the car and on the sand, now on broken glass. All I could see was an arm moving above my face. Left and right and left and right. His movements were making a sound. A wet sound. It was the sound of my flesh being slashed open. He was cutting my throat with the knife. Again and again and again. It felt unreal, but it wasn't. I felt no pain, but it was not a dream. This was happening. The man was slashing my throat." One of them asked, "Do you think she's dead?" "No one can survive that," other replied. Then they drove off, leaving her to die. Alison was lying on the ground but still breathing. Then she realized what was going on. At that moment, she wanted to leave at least a hint about who did this to her, so she wrote their names in the sand and added the words, "I love my mom," underneath. She had to make it to road for someone find her. She fell many times but somehow managed to get up. She finally reached the road. She was lying right in the middle of the road, across the white line. No one was passing by, but after a while, a car stopped. She saw the light, but no one got out. She wasn't sure how long she lay there until another car stopped. Eventually, another car stopped. A man got out of the car and ran towards Alison. The man was Theuns Eilard, a 20-year-old veterinary student. Theuns Eilard was on holiday with his friends in Port Elizabeth at the time. The first thing he noticed was that she was naked. She was not wearing any clothes. And second thing, when he got next to her, was her throat cut open. He took off his shirt and asked one of his friends to take off his shirt. They immediately covered her. He took her hand. He asked her to squeeze his hand once for a yes, and twice for a no. He realized she was conscious. He started asking her questions about what had happened. He had his entire hand over the neck. He could see everything inside. He kept telling her she was going to be okay, reminding her how to breathe, and telling her to just breathe slowly. He kept her conscious until the ambulance arrived. When ambulance came, he got an ambulance with Alison. At the hospital, doctors were horrified by what they saw. Dr. Ongelef, who was on duty that night, examined her. He would later state that in his 16 years as a doctor he had never seen someone with such severe injuries. It was a miracle she would pull through. Alison was in surgery for 3 hours. She awoke later that morning. The police arrived at the hospital, showed Alison a file with photos of the suspects. She couldn't speak, she just pointed at them. Frans Toit and Theuns Kruger. They were arrested the next morning. Frans Adriaan Toit was 26 years old. The son of a police officer, he was raised with Christian values. He married a woman and fathered a daughter. Theuns Johannes Kruger was 19 years old. His father had left his mother shortly after she got pregnant. She married another man. He had a troubled childhood. Monday morning, December 19, Detective Melvin Humpel was called in to lead the investigation. When Humpel started questioning Toit and told him he was being accused with attempted murder, "Why attempted murder?" Toit asked. Humpel replied that the victim was still alive. Toit could see the disbelief. He asked again, "Is she really alive?" Humpel confirmed that she was indeed alive. Toit then said, "Okay, then I can tell you the whole truth," and that's when the details emerged. Toit and Kruger had a history. They had previously been released on bail for 2 sexual assault cases, one of which involved a pregnant woman. The trial of Frans Toit and Theuns Kruger, known as the Ripper Rapists, began on June 12, 1995. They stated that they were under the influence of Satan. Toit placed the blame for his actions on the demon. An exorcism ritual was performed on Toit by a pastor, and it was even recorded on video to be shown in court. Their previous victims attended court and testified. And then it was Alison's turn. A member of public was quoted in Die Burger, Uskap, as saying that, "It was as if someone who should have been dead was testifying about her murder." August 7, 1995. The judge sentenced them to life in prison for kidnapping, assault, sexual assault, robbery, and attempted murder. Mr. Justice Chris Jansen stated that they needed to be removed from society forever. Following the trial, Alison fell into a deep depression. Alison was struggling. She quit her job. She started going to therapy to overcome her trauma. A year after the attack, Alison ran into Teenie at a friend's house. She had known him for a long time, but they weren't close. At that time, Teenie was also going through a serious depression. This brought them closer together, and they supported each other in their healing process. They got married in February 1997. Their first son was born on November 14, 2003. She is now the mother of 2 boys. Tyan Eilard, a veterinary student, who sat beside Alison Botha and held her hand that night, completed his training as a healthcare worker and chose to become a doctor for people instead of animals. In her time of healing, many people and groups contacted her to give speeches. The sharing her story has been her healing, knowing that she was helping someone. Alison is now a highly popular motivational speaker. She has traveled to over 30 countries, sharing her story and helping others overcome their traumas. In 1998, she published her book I Have Life, which gained international attention and was translated into many languages. Additionally, the South African documentary Alison, adapted from her book I Have Life, was released in 2016. After 28 years behind bars, Frans Toit and Theuns Kruger were released on parole on July 4, 2023. Alison Botha shared the following on social media: "The day I hoped and prayed would never come. When I was asked, 'How will you feel if they ever get parole?' my immediate answer was always, 'I'm hoping I'll never find out.' But today, I did." What do you think of this case? Please share what you think about this case in the comments below. Thank you for watching.